Welcome into Renner Ranks. I'm Mike Renner, NFL draft analyst for The Messenger. Today, we're breaking down some draft prospects, the top 5 quarterbacks in the 2024 NFL draft with a little help from my old pal, Steve Palazzolo of PFF. And we each had, despite this being one of the best quarterback classes, we each had a different guy at number 1. Excited to get into it. Let's get it.
This is Renner Ranks, the ultimate NFL ranking show. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match of up to $100. Every Friday, we will be breaking down some sort of prospect rankings. I'm trying to get a draft analyst on every Friday. Steve, not technically a draft analyst, although he did do the PFF draft guide prior to myself taking that over back in 2018, 2019. When was that? Seems like forever ago. That was. So we have Steve Palazzolo on. We'll try to get a draft analyst every Friday to rank some prospects, going through position by position here against me. And then once draft season comes on, well, then it's full tour de force. We're going to be doing prospects. We're going to be doing teams every single day. Draft fits. Very excited for that. Very excited for these rankings. Steve Palazzolo, quarterback guru for PFF. Let's get right into it. All right, Steve, you're the QB guru, the resident QB guru. So we're going to kick it to you first. Who is your number 5 quarterback as it stands right now? And I know you said you didn't want to rank 3 through 5, but you're going to have to on this show. Who's your number 5 quarterback in the 2024 class right now?
I thought we were just talking about QBs 1 and 2. That's what I was hoping for. But I think I'm going Shedeur Sanders as 5. Okay. To me, I think for me, it's kind of between – he might not even come out, and I understand that. But between him and Quinn Ewers for me, like I might want to take a shot on Ewers because I've seen some improvement there. And with Sanders, there's still a lot of stuff that I don't like, and there's stuff that I do like, which is why I put him at 5. Throws the ball pretty well, but pocket presence, I think, has to get better.
Yeah, I've been very impressed. You know, what I saw dating back to even his time at Jackson State. Like I watched the Jackson State tape. I'm like, oh, you know, like I guess I hadn't like realized he was like a highly rated recruit. I just like thought it was Deion Sanders' son, and I like hadn't heard anything about him. But like, dude's talented. Like he really has NFL talent dating back to that. And I'm like, he's more advanced even than, or just more like technically sound and like his footwork than even like a, you know, Michael Penix in this class. And some of the guys who are older than him, like I think he's throws from more consistent base. I think there's a lot to like. And obviously like he's taking on volume in that Colorado State offense. Like they put it all on his shoulders. Right. So I've been very impressed with him. But I think he hit the nail. He's not coming out, right? His dad said if he's not number 1, he's not coming out. And we'll get to the number 1 and number 2 on this list, but he ain't number 1.
He's not jumping those guys.
I don't think he's particularly close to jumping those guys. So I don't think he's coming out. So talking about him, a little bit of a moot point. My number 5, though, I'm going Bo Nix. I know before we started here, the Oregon quarterback, before we started, you said you don't want to like Bo Nix. And I felt the same way last year when I watched his tape. I'm like, this is because Auburn was such like a sort of bad taste in the mouth as an evaluator. To watch this guy who's so talented, like he's got all the physical tools, right? Play horrible football for 3 years at Auburn, truly. And then turn into like a game manager here at Oregon who kind of just dinks and dunks his way down the football field. Even that drive this past week against Washington, biggest drive of his career. I don't think he threw it more than like 5 yards down the football field the entire drive. He was just trying to, you know, knew he had the timeouts, knew he could do that, and did just that, got him in field goal range. Probably could have taken some more chances, but didn't. And I think that's if there is a worrisome thing, it's that he is tight. He plays a little tight, and you could still see that Auburn Bo Nix trying to come out with his footwork at times. Like he gets antsy, and then he hits his check down and won't, you know, when things get a little ugly in front of him because he's playing behind such a good offensive line. I still worry if that guy's in there somewhere when he faces a lot more pressure, when he would be having to come back with just the passing game with kind of it all on his shoulders, what it's going to look like. But I think there's enough there between his arm strength and his legs that of these top 5, I came in the year saying probably there's 2 guys I felt good about going first round. I think this whole top 5 I'd probably draft in the first round at this point. So Bo Nix is my number.
Yeah. So Nix is actually my 4.
Okay.
So even though I'm saying, hey, I don't trust him, I'm going to view the Auburn transition as a positive. Obviously, I mean, you should think of it as a positive. Yeah. There's a fear that, like, man, that he went from gunslinger to game manager. You and I were talking offline. It was like this dude went from Jay Cutler to Alex Smith. I don't think I've ever seen that, but there's this moldable ability where I say, okay, maybe that's a thing, right? Is he moldable? Is there a little bit of gunslinger in him? So if he does, can you move that slider, right, from gunslinger to conservative? Because last year against UCLA, I saw him execute this over and over, quick hitting, conservative passing game where he made good decision. Yeah, there's a lot of screens in there too, but good decision after good decision after good decision. And that's impressive to me, right? That he's executed multiple types of game plans. He does throw really well on the run, and he's got a little bit of that, playmaking creativity to him. So that part I think is intriguing for Bo Nix. The fact that we've seen him grow in multiple systems. And it's like, remember, like Jordan Palmer came out a few years ago when he was in the middle of being the, gunslinger who threw to the defense 3 times. He's like, he's a future number 1 overall pick. And that's one of those comments. You're like, come on, Jordan, stop saying that. Stop. Like, there's no way. But it's one of those that comes true later where it's like, he was right. Like, there was something in him and the ability to adjust and run a different scheme and run it effectively in a whole different style. I think it's impressive.
Well, let's not say he was right, because he ain't going number 1 overall.
He was right-ish. Like, he was
but
right-ish,
he was he saw the talent, and the talent's evolved. And I do agree with your point there that we should see it as a positive. You can't hold the Auburn against them. You should see it as like legitimate growth, that he's actually recognized his weaknesses and gotten rid of them. I do still think the accuracy is not, so he's completed 78.9% of his passes. His accuracy is not that. That is boosted by that offense and what he's asked to do. But it's NFL caliber at this point. He's able to, it's good enough. I'll just say. But the biggest thing is still like pressure, man. He doesn't see any pressure in that offense, barely any. Yeah. I'm looking at PFF.com right now. 13 pressures this past week against Washington was the most he's had in a game all season. It was as many as he'd had in the rest of his games combined, almost. So that's going to be something that just like you need to see before you believe a guy. All right, my number 4 was Shedeur Sanders. Today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world today, and it's important to be prepared. The Jase case is a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. You can also customize your case and add additional life-saving medications based on your unique needs. Jase Medical now offers customizability for your Jase case with dozens of add-on medications. Choose the medication that best fits you and your family's unique needs. Jase is continually working to expand their medication offerings. In those recent efforts, they've added ivermectin as an option to the Jase case. You can also buy gift cards for family or loved ones so they themselves can get their own Jase case. Go to jasemedical.com and enter the code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That's promo code LOCKEDON at jasemedical.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel, my personal favorite sports book of choice. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed, when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, spreads, parlays, over-unders, and more. I'm an SGP fan myself, those same game, single game, whatever you want to call them, parlays. I think there's value to be had there. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. So let's kick it back to, and we discussed him. Again, I don't think he's coming out, but I think the separation there to me is that he's a lot younger, playmaking ability outside the pocket, and we've seen him under pressure a lot this year. A little different in terms of what he's been asked to do under pressure, Bo Nix versus Shedeur Sanders. So that's what tips the scales towards Shedeur for me. Who's your number 3?
Really quick on Sanders, but like there are people who analyze quarterbacks in an oversimplified way, which is what was the team before and after this quarterback? It's like oversimplified, but maybe directionally correct. And I'm not saying Shedeur is the only reason why Colorado's competitive after winning one game last year, but there's something to it There's something to the volume that you said. There's something to, I don't think the line's great. It's not as bad as his sack totals would indicate, but he's carrying a lot. And I think that's where I'm intrigued by Shedeur Sanders. Number 3, again, I don't love it. I'm going Michael Penix here because I know he's old and he's got bad knees. I know that's like the beginning of the scouting report sounds like me, right? Old, bad knees. I'm getting some 2019 Joe Burrow vibes from Penix, right? You've got this elite receiver core, which is a factor. We know that's a factor. It's not insurmountable, but that is a factor in his production. But he is throwing these 30, 40-yard handoffs down the field, the downfield passing from Penix. And I thought coming into the season, everything we described about Bo Nix kind of runs the offense and makes the throws and does the basic stuff really, really well, I'd say. That element, I think, is intriguing about Penix. The age thing, I don't know. The age thing doesn't matter through the lens of will he get better? The age thing matters if you're looking at his production right now and saying this is incredible, right? Because it does matter if you're older, if you're just, projecting a guy based off of his production. It is easier theoretically when you're older in college. It doesn't mean he'll have limited upside or anything just because he's a couple of years older than other guys, in my opinion. So that's the part. I think he can run an offense, and he's got some 3-level accuracy that, can play.
And also with Penix, though, to touch on the age thing, he was awesome as a sophomore at Indiana. Like he was darn good. This wasn't even like a Joe Burrow where, obviously Joe Burrow couldn't start as a sophomore, but like Penix was doing things with an Indiana team that was not good, that he should not have been doing way back when. And it was just injury after injury piled up, couldn't stay on the football field. And once he gets to Washington, there's been nothing but high-end play from him. So if you're comparing, the better one's Hendon Hooker. The better one to me is like a comparison to Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker was like legitimately not great early on in his career at Virginia Tech. Turned out to be once he gets to Tennessee and runs this kind of gimmicky offense. So that's why Penix is 3 for me. I this past weekend jumped those other 2 guys that I just mentioned, Bo Nix and Shedeur Sanders, because of that. Because what was the difference in this game? The special throws down the football field. He does have receivers that are probably some of the one of the best receiving cores in the country, but he was also putting it on guys down the field in clutch situations that he really had no business doing, that Bo Nix straight up was not doing in that game. And yeah, he kind of throws like Uncle Rico. He's got that, he doesn't step in to throws, and he kind of like flips back as soon as he like whips it. It's all arm, but he's got a strong arm. It is, it's kind of hilarious to watch, and it might, turn evaluators off because of it, but he attacks down the football field. He's accurate with the ball. And my biggest thing, he does not take sacks. He will not take sacks. Like he avoids them very, very well over the course of his career. So he has 1,406 dropbacks. He's taken 23 sacks over that span. So that's like about 2 full NFL seasons. He's taken only 23 sacks, a career 6.2 pressure to sack conversion rate is insane. That's one of the best we've ever seen, when PFF started grading from a prospect. And it's not just that Washington has a fairly good offensive line. They do, but like that dates back to his time at Indiana. He wouldn't take sacks behind a bad Indiana line. So you put all those things together, and, ACLs to me would be important for other positions, but I don't know if that's really what that's going to do at the quarterback position, besides maybe heighten the risk of re-tearing it. But I don't think you're worried about like the guy's career getting shortened, right? I don't think that's a big thing.
No.
So
it's funny. I think the analytics community especially is really hot on the sack thing, right? Really hot on the pressure to sack rate, and and the analytics community, our friends on analytics football Twitter, they oversimplify things sometimes. Like, just look at sack rate, and that's the only thing you need.
Yeah.
But it is a thing that plays, right? It plays across multiple colleges. It plays from college to the NFL. It's not always 1-to-1, but it is a very projectable trait. And again, when you're just talking about a guy that can run the offense and make the those special downfield throws with some accuracy and avoid negative plays, there is something to like there.
The one thing I don't like about Michael Penix is that Washington's all-22 is shot from like a blimp. So when you flip on the tape, it looks like watching dots on the field. You have no clue what's going on when you're watching the sideline camera for Washington.
But by the way, I was tweeting some Caleb Williams throws earlier in the season. Some of his ridiculous throws, and some Washington fans came into they were like, "No, Michael Penix has a better arm." And at first, I was like, "You people are crazy! Like fandom is a disease." And I'm not saying Penix is at Caleb Williams' level, but there are some incredible arm strength type of throws. You were talking about his mechanics. He is almost like pure sidearm. I think mechanics are one of the most overrated things because it's just about, are you throwing on time and accurately? And do you have footwork to get, from 1 to 2 to 3? And can you do that? Like, that's what mechanics are. It's not aesthetics. The aesthetics aren't great, but they get there, and there is good velocity on the ball and there's accuracy. So I don't care about his mechanics as far as like how it looks,
Yeah. I wonder if anyone's even going to try to change his mechanics. Like if he does get with a Jordan Palmer and tries to change that stuff, because like at this point, I don't know. Like he's doing well enough without it. His arm strength's more than good enough without it. So as I stated off the rip, today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the largest independently owned DFS platform in North America. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, all you do is pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Testing my skills on PrizePicks this football season is the most exciting way to play DFS. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. It's really simple to play. You can make your picks and submit an entry in 60 seconds or less. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match of up to $100. That's right. PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNFL with the code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match of up to $100. This podcast is also brought to you by DoorDash. Having people over for the big game this weekend? Don't spend your time slaving away on that world-famous buffalo chicken dip that's the same as everyone else's buffalo chicken dip. Order chips, dips, nachos, or everything you need to make your own buffalo chicken dip on DoorDash and get it all delivered without missing the game. Kick back at kickoff with unbeatable deals on everything you need to watch, party, or tailgate. Score football season's best deals on groceries, restaurants, retail, and more. All of your favorite restaurants and stores from retail to grocery are on the app so you can shop everything you need to get game day ready. Get 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCKED23. Subject to change, terms apply. That's 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 on your or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCKED23. As I said, subject to change, terms apply. We shall see. All right, here it is. Top 2, the debate. Who do you have at number 2, Steve?
I'm wondering if it is a debate now. I know Notre Dame crushed Caleb the other night. I understand. Good job, Mike. Congrats. Thank you. I mean, number 2 still Drake Maye for me, and I don't know if I'm going to flip that. I like Drake Maye. I'm a fan, and he is, when you look at age, like he's young, but and that works in his favor because it's like, all right, I do expect improvement, and I expect improvement in some of the things like footwork and like some of the easy stuff. I thought some of Drake Maye's worst plays are just simple throws to the flat, little stick routes. I mean, he's just off on some of the easy stuff. And much like Josh Allen, athletic, big armed quarterback, was able to just that's a footwork improvement. Those are things that maybe I would have cared more about, but we're seeing more quarterbacks able to fix that. I think Drake Maye is unbelievable throwing to the middle of the field. His ability just seam routes and the feel when to back shoulder it, when to lead, when to throw a touch. I think all of that stuff's great. I think this year he's had a few more of those out of structure plays, the left-handed touchdown, and ability to work outside of structure and put the ball on receivers. So I like Maye a lot. We'll talk about Caleb Williams in a minute, but Maye's my 2, and I don't anticipate, unless Caleb Williams really collapses worse than he did on Saturday night, I don't anticipate Drake Maye jumping Caleb Williams for me. I
have Maye 1, truthfully. And it's not no shot at Caleb Williams. I think they are elite prospects. And I just think Maye has fewer flaws right now. And now Williams has unbelievable highs, right? Like I think, so to talk about him, he's my number 2 quarterback. He has just pure physical ability is off the charts in terms of what he can do with his arm on the run, how he can escape pressure, how he could run as a ball carrier, and just what that means transitioning to the NFL. It's just like seems easy to scheme up an offense for a guy that gifted. But I think Drake Maye is just fits into any scheme. Like there's no scheming up for Drake Maye. The guy is scheme agnostic. That's not the right word. He's scheme diverse. He can do it like, just because the arm is there, the off platform is there, the mobility is there, the in structure, in timing is there. There's just, like you said, there's some misses on his tape. I don't think he's a pure elite accuracy guy by any means. I wouldn't put him in that category. That's probably his biggest weakness at the moment, but it's not like concerningly bad. It's certainly not as bad as someone like Justin Herbert's was coming out of Oregon. But the good is so good, and he avoids pressures and sacks at a fairly well rate. And he's not working with the supporting cast. Like you're seeing him have to elevate lesser talent week in and week out than a Caleb Williams has to. Caleb Williams can, fart out 300 yards in some of the games that he's playing against on his schedule, which is like the talent they have him around at USC, especially the offensive line talent they have him around him right now in the pockets he's getting. And then with Lincoln Riley calling plays. So, and then you factor in 6'4" versus just a shade over 6 foot, 6'1", 215, that as much as we see Jalen Hurts getting by at that size, just the historical precedent for guys in that range is not nearly as good as it is for guys that are tall like Drake Maye. So I think that's kind of what tips the scales. So it's close. I mean, it's damn close to me.
You're going with the height tiebreaker. I was not expecting to hear that.
The height tiebreaker. So
like I said, I like Maye a lot. In my note, it's funny because I have similar notes on Maye and Williams, which is I want to see those guys hit the layups. And I think for Maye, he just misses some layups. Yeah. And Caleb Williams doesn't even look for layups. But that's what
that's
also
a good way to put it. Yeah.
Right. Like that's what makes me intrigued. I mean, so what makes me intrigued by Caleb Williams is if he didn't have any bad games, there would be a lot like it's going to come out of people's mouths. Caleb Williams and Patrick Mahomes, right? There's because there's mobility, because there's legit speed as a scrambler. There's a cannon for an arm. I swear, Josh Allen has a cannon. I don't think I've seen anybody throw on the run with the velocity that Caleb Williams has. And that's not the tiebreaker or anything. It's just he does stuff at such a high level trait-wise compared to NFL quarterbacks. It's out of this world, right?
Like when on the run, when it's just arm too. Like when there's when there's
throwing
just
to his left.
Yes, that's
throwing
like
to his left all the time.
I agree. I do agree. I have not seen anything like that.
So Josh Allen just this past Sunday night creates the game-winning throw on a play that's not there. He's scrambling to his right, but because of his velocity and ability to throw the ball, it's at this spot away from coverage, it created a touchdown that didn't exist. Bills win. Caleb Williams has that type of ability. So I might be blinded by the can-do aspect of Caleb Williams. I really think a lot of his scouting report should read a lot like Patrick Mahomes' scouting report coming out of college. Now, where those things diverge is the question, right? Patrick Mahomes took all his weakness column coming out of college and turned them all into strengths, whether it was because he's in Andy Reid's system, because he just decided to play within the system a little bit more. But Mahomes wanted to make too many plays outside of structure. He faced all these 3-man rushes. He was trying to, play backyard football too much, but he figured out the balance at the NFL level, right? And I don't know if Caleb Williams will do that, but I would love to bet on it. And because I think Caleb Williams just lets you do different things, right? So the same way Mahomes, if everybody's covered, you just know he's going to pick up a first down with his legs. Caleb Williams has that aspect of it. Caleb Williams is, running plays where he just decides he's going to become a lead blocker on a play because he's that athletic. I'm not saying that's the thing that makes him an NFL star, but there are those little things that he does that I think are different from anyone else. Just like a Mahomes has some things he does that are different from anyone else, that if Williams can figure out some of his weaknesses, and we could talk about how he handles pressure and blitz answers and all that stuff, but if he figures out some of those weaknesses, Caleb Williams, that I would chase that ceiling, I think, over Drake Maye.
I don't know. I've said for a while now, I don't think you can go wrong. I think their tape this year hasn't been, unbelievable, but it's only solidified my belief that I think they're on a similar sort of tier that is above everyone else, and that 1 and 2 quarterbacks have not had a great legacy of working out. But I do think that this year I wouldn't be too worried if I have the second overall pick versus the first overall pick in this quarterback class. All right, so we ranked our top 5 there.
I agree.
If there's anyone outside of the top 5 by, it doesn't have to be like your number 6, but who are you most intrigued by? Because it's such a deep quarterback class. who's the guy outside of the top 5 that you're like, I would like to see more of him, what he could be?
So we've talked off air about JJ McCarthy. I think we both kind of have that. I want to see more. Quinn Ewers is the guy. I mean, I mentioned him as a potential six. Again, I don't know when Ewers comes out, but you've seen improvement from him, maturity. He cut his hair. You know how that is, Mike. You cut your hair, you're like a whole new person, right? You're business now.
Yeah.
And that's Ewers. He reminds me. There's a little of Bo Nix in there where it's like, okay, do I trust it, right? Because there's so many of his plays that don't look aesthetically nice because it's bad footwork and everything, but he gets away with it. But I don't know if that lack of attention to detail is going to play. But Ewers has the talent, man, to make a run. And then JJ McCarthy, like I said, I think there's something there. I'm just not sure. Every now and again, I'm like, man, he's got great zip. Every now and again, he also just, throws a duck for a deep ball, and it's inconsistent arm talent and the, size and athleticism that he has. I just don't know if that's a great transition to the NFL. It's good, not great.
Yeah, to me, both of them are, and McCarthy maybe not so much because he's not even been asked to do anything. He's played nobody. Like, we'll find out when he plays, Penn State, Ohio State, what he's really made of. But both of them I see coming back, honestly. I don't think either of them are guys that are going to look at this class and say, I want to go out. Like, they look at this class and say, next year I could be the number 1 overall pick, possibly. So I think both are guys that I would just expect to come back. The one I'm intrigued about, maybe not as much as those two, but who this season has really opened my eyes, is Tyler Van Dyke, the Miami quarterback. He was a guy 2 years ago, his first year, kind of came in for De'Ara King, right? When he went down, had a good second half of the year. He's getting, first round hype, whatever. Pooped the bed back 2022 season. Did not play well at all. I believe got benched at times. Came back this season, took his medicine, and he looks like a different guy. He had a throw against North Carolina that was like one of the throws of the year. Just a guy bearing down on him, got popped, puts a wheel route in the bucket, probably about 40 yards down the football field. He's an all-time looks the part guy. He's 6'5", 230, and the ball just flies out of his hand. He can just any level, it just on a dart drive throws really easy. So he just looks like a different guy. I mean, he looks way better than ever before. So I don't know necessarily if he's going to make his way into like the first round conversation, but I bet he goes to like a Senior Bowl and a Shrine Bowl and looks good in shorts, sort of guy, and could play.
People are going to like him.
Yeah. So
yeah, the story around Miami is they've built the offense around his strengths, right? And so you go from a guy that hit a downturn in his career, and he is playing much better than he was a couple of years ago. There's a lot of those guys, right? I mean, it does feel like college football right now has a plethora of at least starting caliber NFL quarterbacks, which isn't the goal, which is really, that's what makes QB evaluation tricky. The goal isn't to find starters. The goal is to find the guy, the franchise guy. I don't know if there's more than 2 franchise guys, but I think there's a lot of potential starters around college football right now.
Yes. I mean, this might not be like the top heaviest of classes, but it's one of the deepest that I've ever seen, obviously assuming that these guys come out. All right, Steve, what you got in the pipe down at PFF? Anything we should be looking forward to here?
Just the PFF NFL podcast, man. Just
the daily pod. How often are you on a week now? Are you on every day?
I'm just doing 3 days a week. I suggest everybody tunes in 5 days a week, but especially Monday, Wednesday, Thursday when I'm on, reviewing every game Monday, previewing every game Thursday, and just rambling for over an hour on Wednesday about anything. Who knows?
Those episodes go off, the review and the preview. Everyone wants to hear what you think of them. All right, Steve, appreciate you coming on, ranking these quarterbacks. We'll probably get you on again, hopefully during draft season, maybe revisit some of this quarterback talk, see then who's actually declared, who we're actually looking forward to in the draft. But appreciate it. Good seeing you, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it, buddy.
I am very curious to see how this quarterback class checks out in terms of who declares. We rank these Bo Nix, Michael Penix, they got to declare. 6 years in college, it's time to head out, fellas. You're done. So those guys have to declare, but there's a lot of guys who are very talented that don't necessarily have to. So it's going to be fun to debate all spring long because draft's catching up. Draft's coming up. It's a lot of teams are looking forward to the draft as it stands right now. I know I'm always looking forward to the draft. But on Monday, we'll be back with my All-22 tape takeaways. As every Monday, I watch the All-22, so you don't have to. Sunday night, I'll be up late. Won't be coming back from the Notre Dame game, so I'll have a lot of time on my hands. Won't be violently hungover either, driving back from South Bend, Indiana, which will also help me. So very excited for that. Hope you guys tune in. We will see you on Monday.